Welcome to the Meeple Syrup After Show, Designers Discussing Design, episode 73. And we go deep! That's right, we're talking board game design, we're talking about replayability, we're talking about what makes people come back to games over and over again. And we managed to convince Scott to come back with us, so scared Kane away. Probably the responsible one out of the two. But
Probably.
Scott is a glutton for punishment and stuck around with us, Meeple Syrup folk.
He's also on the West Coast, so
He's got the West Coast factor, and I mean he's traveling around all the time, so really his clock's probably all messed up anyways. But
that's true.
here we are. What do you think? Let's just open this right up. What are some factors that make a game replayable for you? What makes you keep coming back to some games? I'll start with Sen.
It's funny because a lot of people, it's got to have a modular board and it's got to be variable this and we've got to have different expansions. And no, you know what makes it replayable is that it's fun. I mean, simple, right? It's if it's not fun, I don't care how modular it is. And oftentimes, a lot of those modularity pieces, they just add confusion to the game. They don't add anything except more setup time, more rules, more edge cases that I have to then design around and balance and rebalance.
Yep.
So I'm not the hugest fan of modularity. I don't mind a well thought out expansion.
Sure.
But I find a lot of the
don't necessarily plan all your expansions before you've made a really fun game. Worry about making the most fun first time experience.
For sure. And I mean, Scott has it right when he said, I look for the fun. I find the fun. And that's what Jay and I have been preaching for, a decade now is that, you have to find what is the most fun thing about this game that I'm designing and then go after that. And everything else just kind of goes away or sort of falls to the wayside organically as you realize that that thing that you thought was cool might mathematically be cool but is really not fun in life and in playing it real life on the table. And so that's the important thing for you designers out there is, what's good up here isn't necessarily good on the table. And a lot of times people get so caught up in, oh no, I have to make X number of cards, I have to make a huge deck of, random events and all these things. And at the end of the day, it really probably doesn't matter if the core game itself, A, isn't fun, and B, if all that additional stuff adds rules and layers of unnecessary complexity that Scott was talking about as well, that then just take away from the fun. So I just want a game to be fun. That's all I care about.
So what about you, Tyler? What other things do you see working for replayability, or is there some examples out there that drive you nuts?
I just want to comment with what Sen was saying there, because you look at something like Machikoro and Dice City. They're very similar games. But with Machikoro, you're rolling. Everyone can get money. At least they're still doing stuff. But Dice City, you're just sitting there waiting for your turn. But as a game, I like Dice City much better. So it's like one has one really cool thing, but the game is the other one is and it just doesn't have that. So it's almost like it's a fine line in between them. But I agree with.
Sorry. I was just going to say, one thing recently that drove me nuts when it came to replayability is the amount of cards provided in code names. How many of those clue cards?
Yeah.
There's like a stack like this thick. There's no way someone is memorizing and needs that many cards and code names.
I think the fun factor, but fun is different. It's so different for so many people.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
I can play Loretto, and I always use my neighbor's mom as an example because Wendy is a kind, loving person, but I'm not going to play 90% of my game. I'm going to play Loretto, the dice game, with her, and she is going to love it and have a great time, but I'm going to sit down and try to explain Cacao, and she's going to look at me like I have three heads, even though it's not that difficult of a game. But I love playing them both. Or something like Spit It Out by R&R Games. I love that game so much, and it's just cards and words and cards and words and cards and words.
Yeah. It's definitely like defining fun, and it sounds like Renegade Game has a vision of what are kind of fun games. Scott kind of sees it when he sees it. What can you describe a little bit so far of how you are capturing the fun?
I mean, like it's not really an exact science. Like you guys have all said it. You have to want to replay it. For me personally, the thing that gets me coming back a lot of times to any game is if I can come back to it and play it slightly differently, right? It's like different strategic decisions, and say, well, let me see how that works. A lot of times I play games and I kind of don't care if I win. I just want to see how this works out.
Yep.
Right? It's like an experiment. Let me see how this works. Oh, it didn't work well at all.
Oh,
well,
you're one
that's
of
okay,
those
'cause I
guys.
yeah, because I can play it again.
Yeah.
It's not like I can't play the thing more than once. It doesn't explode after I'm done.
Although that would be pretty cool.
That might be an
Just
interesting
have it
market.
sales benefits.
Right.
Protobomb.
Yeah, yeah. How about you,
So,
Daryl? What makes a game replayable? What gives a game depth for you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the fun statement, obviously, but I think there, like Scott's saying, there's a bit of a mystery there. I mean, you're talking like keeping the flow channel kind of going.
Mm-hmm.
So something like pie in the face is hilarious. It gives you
Pie face.
an experience, but
Not
it's
that
like
deep.
a very quick, wham bam, good story to tell. But and that is a great game. But then also, if I was always just turning to pie face, I'd probably be disappointed because for me, I'm looking for a variety of experiences.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Pie Face is kind of predictable, right?
Yeah.
Like yeah. But
Not a lot of
I
depth
just
there.
took the thing of whipped cream and just sprayed myself. It's like, it's going there anyway.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
One of the other things that keeps me engaged and has depth and replayability for me is if I can think about the game outside of the game.
Mm.
I talk about meta a lot because I'm a huge meta player when it comes to games like Magic or any army building game like X-Wing. I'll sit and think for hours about the deck I'm building or the list I'm building or this fleet that I'm creating or whatever. And so that kind of game, if there's a simple system that I can build an army with or that I can create something outside of the game to then bring into the game, that really captures my personal engagement. That's
I
something
think
that I
that's
really like.
usually why drafting or auction games or things like that, where you get to assemble or try to collect, and like Scott was saying, even different paths to trying, then you keep coming back because you go, oh well, I wonder if that strategy even that someone used that was horrible, like I wonder if I could use it and it could be good, or that winning strategy, does that win all the time? And
Yeah.
I found that with Lagrange. I thought it had great replayability because you can use those cards in so many different ways, and you never have to play the same way twice.
Yeah. Scott, you had a point that you were bringing up?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, historically, collectible games, like I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours just building decks, right? And that was almost more fun than playing in tournaments sometimes. Just trying to, it's that creative process. You get to play in the designer's sandbox, right? He's giving you all these tools. Now you get to try to make something out of them, and that's inherently a core part of a collectible game. And I think if you can try to achieve that in a tabletop, in a game in a box, in a board game experience, it's very unique.
And I think that's exactly the kind of thing or one of the things anyways that we try to capture, or as designers we'd like to capture in some way, shape, or form, is that ability to engage people about the game outside of the game itself, where they can still be thinking about it. And the multiple paths to victory that we always talk about really is an engagement piece in a lot of ways. Because there only is one dominant strategy, then we kind of just always do that. And that may not be super engaging. Or it may be engaging, but not because of the game itself. It's more engaging because of the people you're playing with, or something like that. So a game like, say Euchre, or Tishu, or something like that, a very, classic, semi-classic type card game, the mechanics are not that engaging, but it's all the rest of it around the table that is why I like those types of games as well. Tyler, you had a question.
Yeah, I have a question for Scott about Renegade games, actually. When you're deciding what fits the company, have you had those moments where you have to think outside the box, say, hey, this isn't exactly our core thing, but you know what, I'm gonna take a chance, or I really believe in this game, even though it's different than our ensemble, and I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I'd say especially in the future, you'll probably see some stuff that kind of fits in that. Like, right, we're really young, right?
Yeah.
So I think right now lanterns is probably the thing that most people will associate us with, and Gravwell and things like that, which are, for lack of a better term, I kind of hate some of these terms like gateway games and filler games. Like, they're just games. But,
Yep.
Yeah, I think you'll see that in the future, and that's something that I've kind of struggled with also internally, because we've kind of built this brand and people expect one thing from us. So we have to figure out how to be able to communicate to our players when we do put something out that might not be what we're known for.
Mm-hmm.
So, that'll be a challenge.
Okay.
Would you ever think of creating a sub-brand?
Yes.
Like Renegade?
That's right. Yeah, we've talked about that as well. So one area that we're looking into for next year, and the game that Kane mentioned, Slap It, is kind of part of that family.
Mm-hmm.
These are games that are aimed towards mom and pop toy shop, like the specialty toy industry. And I think we've talked about this. I know Daryl and I talked about it in New York. Those stores reach a totally different demographic than what we reach in the hobby, and they reach a totally different demographic than what, say, a Barnes & Noble reaches too.
Yeah.
But
there's potential there with mum blogs and
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're entry level, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and
They're
those stores,
customers.
they are, and their sweet spot is kind of 6 to 10-year-olds, and they also don't want games that cost more than about $20. That's kind of their cap price point wise as well. So I kind of view games as kind of like a cradle to grave sort of thing. We want to engage. Our industry really should be engaging kids as young as 4, 5, 6 years old in games that aren't your traditional, all the games that we kind of grown to hate and outgrew. I would rather see 3 and 4-year-old kids playing something different besides like Candyland.
Well, it just opens up the mind, because then it goes, oh, there's so much more out there I should explore.
Right, and that's where it becomes more of a family lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like Germany's a great example. You go to Essen, and it's not like Gen Con. Gen Con it's the core industry fan base that that we are all used to. You go to Essen, and it's families.
Totally.
It's totally mainstream. Spectrum. Yeah, totally like mainstream families walking out with giant stacks of games, above their head.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because you go to a place like Tokyo Toy Fair, and it's like the geekiest of the geeky. Yeah. It's very very niche, right?
And then, it's funny. I was talking to Tanya Thompson with Mastermind Games, and she had just been at Nuremberg and was at New York Toy Fair when I was chatting with her. And it was also interesting to hear her talk about even anything from, like, even the after-party meetings and such at New York Toy Fair was still, you'd go, you'd have a drink, but you still talk business the whole time. In Nuremberg, there's games all over the place. And so you hang out and you play games in the evening with each other. And so there's a real potential cultural opportunity still, I think, in North America of people really, like Scott's describing, this lifestyle opportunity where it's just normative. It's, like so-and-so taught me this game as kids, and they teach their neighbors, they teach their class. There's
it's definitely something that's happening. If you remember back a couple years ago when Hasbro was starting to reignite game night idea, that family game night type thing, because they have the ad dollars to do that kind of market push, and then you see obviously with game cafes coming up now more and more. Is it a neighborhood game cafe where people are going and then going back to their homes and having games there? I do think that there's a real lifestyle shift for some people once they find games. For my family, it's always, this is just the way we are. We play games every day. But for some other people who are just finding the hobby, I know that, and that's why a lot of people ask those questions online, like, I love games, how do I get my spouse to play games, or how do I get my kids to play games, or when I'm playing games with my kids, should I beat them? There's all these sort of interesting questions from people who are really new to this whole scene.
exploring.
Yeah, and Mastermind, Scott, is Canada's sort of. Um, it's not quite a boutique toy shop. It's a chain, but it's that level that you're talking about, not mom and pop.
Yeah,
But
like 45, 50 stores type thing.
yeah,
Right. So there's a chain in North America called Marbles the Brain Store.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very similar to
it's very
Marvel.
similar, except
Okay.
more kid level.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's funny actually. You should say that because yeah, when I was with CSE Games doing their booth, Marbles came by and very similar type of which games they pointed out that they would be ordering.
Yeah.
Same with Think Fun. So.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean Mastermind?
Or Mastermind, sorry.
Yeah.
Brain fart.
Yeah, it's hard for me to
version
remember.
of Scholar's Choice.
Well, and the worst part was we were next to Think Fun, so that really threw me off.
That was pretty funny.
When
When you said that to her, I was saying, "Oh, that's kind of awkward," but I guess not. You know, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and like Scholar's Choice too. That's a good analogy as well, Tyler. We have a teacher supply store, Scott, that sells just teaching supplies, but it's
Headquartered in London, Ontario.
yeah, they're
Right.
I worked there for 3 years.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
and,
I mean,
yeah.
I was going to say, so I get hit up by libraries quite a bit that are starting to put games in
Yep.
because libraries are a great place. They're looking to maintain their relevance.
Yeah, and keeping engaging the community and
And
Yeah.
they're kind of evolving into more of like a community center
Yes.
than just a place to go check out books, right?
Yep.
So I think
They're
there's a lot.
they're a hub, right, of culture. And
Mhm.
games should definitely be a part of that culture. In fact, I mean, like I'm running a game jam with FIMS, which is our Western University here in London, Ontario, which is the Faculty of Information Management Systems and Sciences, librarians.
How do you get that on a business card?
I don't know. But so the faculty there contacted me through Scott Nicholson, of course. Scott Nicholson used to be a librarian, so there you go.
And a lot of his papers are focused on library
Gaming in libraries, yeah. And so we've come up with this idea to do a game jam, and then see if we can bring that out to the libraries, and definitely bring gaming out into the libraries. They are really, the librarians, the students are really, really hype on bringing gaming into the libraries. So it's happening at the educational level.
Yeah, there's actually a librarians convention every year in North America. I think it's in Philadelphia or somewhere out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean,
that sounds like where it would be.
Scott's gone to it a few times.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the kind of thing. I think there's another great avenue. I mean, Barnes & Noble commercially is awesome, but then if people who couldn't afford to buy, who needed to go to the library to use a lending library of games, I think that's another great opportunity for people to learn to love games. And I mean, more than just chess. I mean, I played chess at the library and go at the library as a kid, but I would have loved to play other games at the library too.
There's a few different creative programs. I mean, I just when I was at the New York Toy Fair, I got to chat with the Brooklyn Game Labs.
Oh right, yeah, those guys.
And got to catch up with them again, and they're doing some cool after-school programs where they're getting kids designing games and even designing expansions. It's really fun. I don't know if it'll work out, but they had done an expansion for Colt Express, and they were pitching. When I saw them, they were pitching a kids design, like from the club. From the Game Lab, kids had designed a New York 1901 expansion. So
nice.
Just a little, few extra tile type thing with some new rules and a few new cards. And again, it was this idea of kids coming together and engaging their creativity and, associating a whole bunch of different learning tasks with this after-school program. So, I mean, some really cool stuff going on.
There's a couple of public schools in London that the teachers have done that as part of class projects, is having the kids design games. And a friend of mine from Iona Station, which no one watching will know.
I know Iona Station, though. I've been there.
I know Iona Station.
He runs Pierce Williams Retreat.
Yeah,
and there's a giant camping convention in Buckeye, Ohio, wherever it is. And he's like, Tyler, I'm running a a seminar on gaming at camp. What should I talk about? And I was like, wow, that's awesome. So, there's like 700-800 people going to this camping convention, and now they're bringing board games into that aspect too.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, there's also about 2 years ago, Boy Scouts here in North America, or in the U.S. rather, introduced a game design merit badge.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty cool. So now the camping thing reminded me of it, because now you have kids going off to summer camp and they're actually working on game design.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I'm a counselor for it here, and I actually got a chance to look at the book when they were developing it.
Neat.
Through Scouts and everything. But yeah, it's really cool. And yeah, there's definitely the video game piece of it, but it really focuses on board games, because that's kind of the basics of all game design.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it's doable, right?
Right.
Now,
It doesn't
for them
need
to
to know a scripting language.
Yeah.
for them to earn their badge, do they have to like sign a waiver saying you get the rights to the game? Or?
No. But it's actually pretty cool. Some Boy Scouts. This was up on Kickstarter like 6 months ago. These scouts actually designed a game for their merit badge, and one of the adults in their troop, the Scoutmaster or something, decided that, wow, this is pretty cool. Let's put it on Kickstarter and actually try to make the game. And they got it funded. Yeah, and they made the game.
That's
That's cool.
awesome.
I mean,
that
that to me is what Kickstarter's for.
Yes,
Right?
yes, I agree.
That's a perfect example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The whole culture of Kickstarter is just wonky, right? So,
Boy.
I mean, I'm happy for everybody who makes money on it, and
I have
or
never
not even makes money,
interacted
but does
with
stuff.
so many negative comments on until this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles campaign. Man.
Welcome
crazy.
to pop culture licenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything with a major license
Yep.
on Kickstarter is a nightmare.
Oh, just in general, right? Because you get a very passionate fan base,
Yes, for sure.
right? And they're very invested in these characters and storylines and basically the whole world.
Yep.
And when you're a fan I mean, trust me, that's like the majority of my career has been doing license
Sure.
stuff. People, that's it. It's their lifestyle. And
Yeah.
when you do something in that world that maybe they're very cautious about things in their world, right? So
Yes.
yeah,
Very protective, very
protective.
concerned.
Yeah. And I mean, their level of geek credibility is based on their knowledge of canon and all
Yes.
that type of stuff. And when you go off canon, they're going to actually probably think they're gaining something by telling you you're not following
Yeah.
canon,
Oh,
right?
sure.
Right.
They're trying to protect
Right.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
right. But on the other hand, I mean, that's what that when you're doing a licensed product, it's all about those people.
Sure.
You're there to serve them, really.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you can,
in some way.
if you can engage those people and then point them in the right direction,
Right.
then they're your cheerleaders.
Right.
Yeah, you're hoping anyways, right?
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Scott, can we talk, seeing as we're talking about game depth and replayability, can we talk about your past products, the How to Host a Murder stuff?
Oh,
sure.
yeah, I just heard
Because I
about
talked
this.
to Daryl about it. He's
This
like,
is
really?
crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, so I came in when I came to Decipher. Those products had been out for a long time, way before me, right? They actually first started in 1982.
Wow.
So How to Host a Murder Mystery was actually recognized at one point at Gen Con when they were doing this big thing as the very first LARP product.
Sure.
And it really is, right?
Totally.
It's role play.
I'm a LARPer. I never thought
right.
about that. Huh.
Yeah, and that's how that company really kind of got its big start. They had their Decipher puzzle in the early days. But yeah, How to Host a Murder Mystery is really cool. I kind of miss that brand.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but you may not have to miss it much longer.
Yeah.
Really?
Bum, bum, bum.
Hey.
That's the Decipher page.
It's crazy.
Oh yeah, so wait, that's just their new updated homepage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I probably know actually more about that. And,
Yeah. Sure you do.
It's I hope it comes out. They've been working on that actually, this new relaunch for a few years.
Oh, good.
So
I mean,
yeah,
I know
it'll be cool.
I've done a bunch of them. We had a hoot. It was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I did them when I
Not
was
very
kids.
replayable.
No.
Yeah.
Well, they're
But-
like an escape room type of dilemma now. Same thing, like this box escape rooms in a box experience where
Right.
everyone has one great night, and then
Yeah.
That's
The,
what she said. Oh.
Oh,
she did. She did.
somebody had to say it. It was definitely had to be
Yeah.
Tyler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's actually a guy. He lives. I used to work with him back at Decipher, and now he's at a video game company. This guy Mark Tuttle. During our time there at Decipher, we created one new How to Host a Mystery title out of the 19, and he came up with the name for it, which was really brilliant. It was called An Affair to Dismember.
That is great.
Oh.
So we wanted to do an election title back in an election year when we were there, and we got shot down. We couldn't.
Yeah. But now you could do it with Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be
Oh.
awesome.
Here's some real characters.
Oh. Yeah. Be like a dream come true.
It just writes itself.
It
Yeah.
does.
Too
Yeah.
close to home.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Sorry.
what
As
do
a
you think
Canadian,
about-
It's easy to laugh.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hey, Daryl, what do you think about those? I mean, there's one on Kickstarter right now that is an escape room in a box, basically.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. Honestly, I think it's just a logical next step to the escape room experience. Just like I think game cafes are a logical step. So too, it's kind of the reversey of now bringing the escape room home. So, I mean, it's puzzling. It's bringing puzzling to the masses. I think it's involving just creative problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
So,
No, my
kind
question.
of a choose your own adventure book.
In terms of depth, though, and replayability, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I actually think that the conundrum of replayability will be possible. I think there's going to be some ways or solutions. I think one of the solutions is actually app integration.
Yeah.
So to me, that's not a problem. But I also don't. I think sometimes we get a little too greedy when it comes to replayability. I don't mind paying for an experience, a good night. I when I go to the movie theater, I don't come home with a DVD. So.
You're going to be able to though. One day, watch it. You will. Your ticket will be $42. Yeah, you're going to watch the movie to get your DVD.
The movie theaters will disappear before then.
Yeah.
Everyone's home experience is actually just too good now, so
Yeah.
no one wants to go to the theater. But that's actually, again, the idea that escape rooms coming, to wherever someone's hosting, and that excitement level then is also like a way to engage and empower your fan base. Because now, maybe even if you make it that there's a DM in essence, then each person that experiences that now goes out and finds their own group, and they are the DM for their experience. I think if you look at it that way, you don't actually need to make it that it's completely replayable. It just needs to be replayable for noobs, and that someone can kind of look at it as a way to, use a kit, or there's a few angles, but I think overall there's lots of room there.
yeah, I mean, How to Host a Murder Mystery was totally not replayable by the group, right? Like once you played through the mystery, you knew it.
You knew it.
And even back then, right? That was the 80s and 90s. The 90s was probably its peak, and that was a $32 box game in the 90s.
It's pricey.
But, right, but $32, and it was for what was it, 5 to 8 players?
Yeah.
That would get together. But for $32 for 8 people to be entertained for an evening,
That's
it's
great.
not. Yeah, it's not bad, right? Like even by 90s, pricing standards.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, though, you have to know your audience, because
Absolutely.
we did a murder mystery with some friends, and one guy I love him, but it's like you can't get into it. You're just standing there in a football jersey trying to be a football. Like, really, you're just ruining the experience. Now, I was a tech support guy, and I totally went all in on it. And
You know what I love? You're talking in the roles. You remember it still. So
I went as an East Indian fella with a comb over. So I showed up to the lady's house, and she's like, "What have you done?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm just getting into my character. Like and I wasn't being racist. It said on the card, you are from da 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 da." And I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to do that then."
Nice. Taking it to the next level.
Yeah, totally. Daryl, is there anything in terms of depth and design that you've been thinking about lately, like how to make things simple yet complex. I think that's part of the design conundrum.
Yeah, no, I do. Actually, with any game, my goal is obviously that people want to come back to it. Actually, for me, I want people to actually have an excellent first-time experience, but I also really want them to play again. I mean, if you just have a one-time, I think as a designer, that's still a tough sell. So I'm going to focus on trying to give people, multiple plays. But I also try to keep in mind how many times do people actually play games, and what, depending on the type of game it is. So, if it's a little card game, that game should be very replayable because it's probably going to be played many, many times. If it's a deeper 1 hour strategy game, and I'm confident that people are going to have a good experience the first 10 times they play, that's tons of value. And I'm not, if I'm confident that, people can get that many solid plays out of it before they're starting to look for another big box game, or they're looking for an expansion, or they're looking for, something to add to the experience, I think that's, you're doing well.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Sen and I know someone that does that to the extreme, Daryl. Nice shout out to Eric Lalonde, because he keeps spreadsheets of how much the game cost him, how many times he's played, what the value of each play will get as he plays.
Nice.
It's just like, wow.
Honestly, I feel like a game you've got its money's worth. If you played it even 6 times, a big game, that game does not owe you a cent. So.
Daryl knows Eric as well, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of putting that, Daryl, because you're right. Those little games tend to get replayed more and more. It's just like the analogy that I would use is I've played Street Fighter, I don't know how many times, like billions of times.
Yep.
And yet I've probably played, I would never replay a Final Fantasy.
Right.
Because the investment to replay is too
beautiful
high.
Journey doing it.
Yeah,
well.
I liked it the first time. I don't need to do it again,
Yeah.
but I need to play Street Fighter like 10 times a day or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I could see the same thing with like Tishu's my all-time favorite card game, pretty much.
Dude, I need you to play my Seven Summits card game. It's
okay.
So fun.
We'll send it over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's the kind of thing. Like I would play a card game many, 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 many times, but even my favorite of big box games, getting it out to the table, maybe there's a couple other things that get out to the table before that. But
I got a question for you on that, actually, Sen.
Sure.
This is a Frank DiLorenzo comment, and it's awesome. So I know he's a huge Tichu fan.
Yes.
So I showed him my Seven Summits card game and said, I know you love Tichu. Check this out and tell me if this is like in the realm. Because I love Tichu, and I really feel like this is my first game that I've found that's kind of Tichu-ish. And he played it, and right away he was like, "Oh, I will buy this in a heartbeat, but I will never publish this." And I said, "Oh, why?"
That's a frank answer.
And then I said, "Why?" And he said, "Dude, I couldn't even sell Tichu, and I love Tichu." So that tells you, like, is Tichu or those kind of games, are they sellable?
That's a good question. So if you look at, say, Z-Man, Philosophia's, F to Z's classic card box line of, Black Spy, Chimera, etc., Arboretum.
Yep.
You think those sell?
They seem to have quieted down.
Yeah, but I mean,
they did real hot when the box line released, and then look at Haggis. Haggis is like one of these great, well-known 3-player games, and it was up for grabs for a while.
Yeah, and I think they have a limited audience in some senses because I mean, how many specialized card decks do you really want to have? But do you have to? It's just like almost like any other game. You have to make a game that will kill another game or replace another game for that player in order for it to see widespread release. And I mean, you've been to Switzerland.
Yep.
So you went to the actual place where the only game they make is Tishu.
Yeah, I went to that store. I got a custom copy.
Yeah, but that's all they do.
Yeah.
They don't make any other game. Oh, yeah. And it's just like Frank said. He's like, I couldn't even sell that game.
Dude, they couldn't. They had
Yeah.
this wonderful game. They ended up outsourcing it multiple times to get
Yeah. And
distribution.
that's the thing. It's a hard sell. What do you think, Scott, as a publisher, a classic card game, how easy is it to sell those?
In this market, I don't think it's very easy. Everything right now, like we're in a really great space. I think we're trying so many new things that it's hard for the tried and true stuff to really get any attention. The focus is on what's new, right? And not the cult of the new sort of thing, like just the next new thing, but like legacy, right? That's a new way to experience games, and people
climbing
right, but people are excited about it, and rightfully so. It's a new experience. So I think if you don't have if you don't have a good story to tell, as far as, hey, listen, this does something different that you haven't seen before, it's hard to get noticed.
Right. So even a game like Diamonds, which I believe is, a great card game, Mike Fitzgerald being an amazing card game designer, I call it a nouveau classique type game where this is a modern classic, and if you don't know this game and you like card games, you have to play this game. I don't know. I mean, I think
that's another good
like
example.
But that's another example.
Well, but that was a box line starter, and I haven't seen number 2 yet.
Right. Oh, good point. Right, because Steven has told us before that he's looking for games that will fit in that box of that style because he wants to do more of that type of size of game.
Right.
But you're right. We haven't seen the next one yet, and I wonder why.
It's a couple of years now.
Well, size is another thing. I mean, as silly as this seems,
size matters.
Size matters, right? Small games get lost in the stores. They really do. Hobby stores, right? Every hobby store has different racking, has different ways they lay out their store, and small games tend to get lost in those stores, right? Yep. They're afraid to put them out on the shelf because they're easy to steal.
Yep.
And then they wind up somewhere behind a counter, and they're not really collectible games. They don't belong like within all the booster boxes and stuff, and they kind of get lost.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And that's part of the reason why you often see games that don't need to be in a certain size box in a box.
For sure, Magikoro.
Yeah, I mean they need some shelf presence, or they're just going to get lost.
Right.
And it's a shame. I kind of like to be green. Right, like in my personal life, so that's a constant struggle where I'm looking at something and I'm going, well, the box should really be about this big, and then I go, well, Barnes and Noble is going to say then it goes on that rack where, I call it the ugly rack where everything's a mess.
Yeah.
I don't want to be on that rack. So
nobody wants to be on the ugly rack.
No.
No, I mean, I guess the only not saving grace of those size of games, but the only place where those games really actually do stand out is end cap, right? Where they're purposely made for an end cap thing. But then again, like you were saying before, Scott, you're looking at a very specific price point, of like $9.95.
And getting on an end cap in a big box store or even a rack that's made for those games in a specialty store like a B&N, it's a bit of a chicken and the egg. To get on that prime real estate, it has to have been a good seller before it gets there. Right. And if it gets lost and nobody can ever find it, right?
How does it become a good seller, right?
Yeah, there's these odd examples now that we can look at, but I totally agree. I mean, the exception, I remember, I'm drawing a blank on the name. What app do you play all the time, son?
Star Realms?
Star Realms. I remember thinking, man, this could be in a bigger box. Like, they could make more money off of this. And yet, it did so well, and I think it's appreciated, and people really respect that it came in a small box. But there's an example of a game that could have been lost. And yet, thankfully, fans found it, and especially because of the app, I think they did really well with getting fans to find it, discover it, love it, and then go out and buy it.
Well, but also, Rob, over at White Wizard that put that game out, he has a great marketing vehicle that he has. Right, he runs giant Magic events all over the country.
Yep.
So he has an audience that he can market to. That let's face it, that game is very appealing to that type of card game player.
And Epic, the follow-up.
Right, exactly. And Epic is really awesome.
He knows his fan base.
Absolutely. So he can go off to, tens of thousands of Magic players that he already has a connection to and say, hey, look, here's something you might be interested in.
Yeah, play this on the side in between tournaments.
Yeah.
Now, I do just want to say the irony of at least the three of us talking about replayability in games is the fact that we all have hundreds and hundreds of games. You can play a different game every other day, and you're not going to play the same game for 2 years. So it's how do you even replay stuff?
Well, you want to hear something even worse is I barely ever get to play published games. I'm always playing games that are prototypes, right? So
I am actually relieved when I get to play published games.
yeah.
It's actually fun. It's good to step away, like Meeple Syrup Camp.
Yeah.
That was awesome because I spent so much time just playing prototypes, not even just my own. I play other people's prototypes all the time, so it was really quite a good time just to sit back and say, I don't have to give feedback at the end of this. I don't have to tell people what I didn't like about this. This is new. This is great.
Yeah.
I also have to say that I like the Godzilla. You have 2 Godzillas up there.
What? Oh.
Sam's a big Godzilla fan.
Oh, yeah, let's see. Can I... There.
Oh, there you go.
Nice.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, there's a couple of...
Sen is designing a Godzilla game at the moment.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Hopefully it should be out this year.
nice.
Yeah, that'd be good. But yeah, so I mean, there's so much thinking that's going on. I really do like what you were saying, Daryl, about the simpler the game, it actually has to be more replayable.
Well, and I think that's the elegance factor. When people see it and they discover an elegant game that's quick and simple, they really respect that. I think there's, even talking Nitsia, obviously he's the master of that, but I mean, there are examples of games that like I can always go to, and feel confident that the experience is going to be good and it's easy to teach, and those are the games that hit the table because you feel confident in them. You can really bring it to anyone and still have a really good time.
That's funny because Flaja is one of my favorite designers of all time, but I don't table his games a lot. Because
Right.
they're really complex, except for code names.
Code names.
Oh, Scott, if you could sign any designer, who would it be? Who's the one that you want? Like, where's that great white whale?
Any like that got away from you, like you were close, you thought?
Oh, Daryl Andrews got away from me one
Shut
time.
up. Yeah, right. I wish.
I don't know. That's a loaded question.
Well, yeah, you don't have to answer it if you don't want.
No, I mean, I think that there's several that I'd like to work with. I think that a lot of them though too are starting to do things like Vlada, like they're starting their own companies.
Right.
And I don't begrudge them that at all. I think if that's what they want to do, then more power to them. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's probably the perfect storm of there's people that I'd like to work with, but then there's also whether or not we're the right fit for each other too. That
Right.
I want it to work for both sides.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think that's the fairest way to do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
I always talk to new designers about it being a relationship, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Very
Definitely.
important.
I have
Tyler,
a question for you, Scott. When is Asmodee buying Renegade?
Oh,
or when is Renegade buying Asmodee? I think
that's more like it. Yeah. Let's be realistic. No, it's probably very unlikely.
Are you happy being your own person?
Oh.
And would you sell, or you just want to keep trucking?
No, I kind of want to keep trucking.
Would you join a rebellion, like an alliance group of a band of brothers and
misfit
sisters?
smugglers and
Yeah.
Wookiees.
What's really funny is that you are not the first person to ask me that today.
Hey.
So
This is the long-term strategy.
right, yeah. I'm definitely open to working with other publishers. I mean, that's kind of become a common thing now in our industry too. A lot of different co-publishing arrangements, which I think is really a wonderful thing. You wouldn't see this in most industries.
No.
That most of us are very friendly competitors, which is really pretty cool.
Really cool.
Yeah. So.
Oh, I wanted to pick your brain one more time, Scott. Okay, so marketing.
Yes.
Marketing, marketing,
Oh,
marketing.
yes. This is a good
Yes.
one.
All right.
How do you market? How does Renegade market?
Okay. So, what's the best way to put this? So I think that that marketing kind of comes in phases. Um, there's different audiences, and I think that a big part of where some people sometimes take missteps is that their timing is wrong. I'm a firm believer in not marketing to the consumer until either right before or when they can actually get the game.
Yeah.
A lot of times I see people marketing their games like 6, 7, 8 months in advance, and in this market, it's really tough because there's so many messages out there. If I get y'all excited now, but then I can't give you the game in 8 months, like I got to do it all over again. So for me, we market. I first start off marketing to retailers, and that's different, right? I want to educate the retailers about our game, and I spend a lot of time on that. And then the next phase is kind of marketing to consumers. And we've done a lot of different things. I mean, some of it's traditional, social media. We do some print ads in distributors' catalogs, online stuff, banner stuff. And then a lot of it, too, has been partnering with really good game stores to help us launch a brand. I mean, that's how we launched Lanterns. I actually partnered with probably the top 10 game stores in the U.S. and showed them the game a few months in advance, and they all liked the game, and I asked them to focus on the game for about 6 weeks in their store, and I would make sure that they had plenty of copies, and they would demo the game in their store and kind of just give us a springboard, and it worked really well. They all sold about 50 copies in a month.
Wow.
And that really kind of got the ball rolling, and then these are kind of the tastemakers of retail stores,
Sure.
right? These are actually, I'm wearing one of their shirts today. I've got, what is it?
There
Millennium
you go.
Games up in Rochester, New York.
Hey,
Not
Yeah.
too far away.
And these stores kind of set the tone, and they're some of the best stores in the country. They really do a great job. So I do think marketing is something when a designer is looking for a publisher, it's probably the one thing that most designers overlook.
yes.
Just making the game and manufacturing it and getting it shipped from China is actually the easiest part. It's what you do with it afterwards, and there's a lot of publishers that really don't have the sales and marketing side of it figured out, and really, I don't know how you really can be a publisher if you can't actually promote your game and market it and get it into consumers' hands. And it's not easy. Like it's really not easy. I spend way too much of my time on that when I want to be focused more on product development, and that's why next month we're bringing in a new person so I can kind of get sales and marketing off my plate.
Oh, okay. So that's that. I was actually going to ask not who it is, but what their role will be.
Yeah, their role will be sales and marketing.
Nice.
So, yeah, we're gonna
Millennium Games. I think they've done some work with Amanda Games.
Armada.
Disc stores, yeah.
Nice. Well, on that note, we should probably wrap it up. I can't believe
Yes, sir.
how fast the time flies. But thanks again, Scott, for hanging out with us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Really interesting stuff. I will someday pitch you a game that you will sign, I hope.
We're looking at stuff right now. Don't get away, Darren.
Well, true. I'm still hoping. And anyone out there, as you've heard, if you got a good game and you think it fits what Renegade's doing, I'm sure you can track Scott down online or schedule a time to see him at conventions. He's at most of them.
All of them. He's at all of them.
So maybe bribe him with some caffeine or food because he's running around all the time. But yeah, we recommend.
He would actually really like you a lot if you watched his booth while he went to the washroom.
That's what we say for everyone for booths. That is a way to earn some brownie points with publishers. Give them a break, especially let them get to a food truck.
Yeah, get them. Bring them some food, whatever.
Right. Anything like that can be very helpful. And I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting for my Renegade hat. I still need.
I haven't made hats yet.
Well, when you get hats.
Do you want a T-shirt? I can get you a T-shirt.
I'll do a shirt.
Yeah, shirts are good.
Right. We can start there.
All right, so let me just call up the last screen because I had it and then it just went away on me. There it is.
We have Fuse at our local game store, so I'll go pick up a copy and hopefully do a video in the next couple weeks.
I'll send you a copy.
Oh no, I don't. Save shipping. I've got like hundreds of dollars in credit. I just take what I want.
Wow.
So on that note,
I will pick up Fuse. So
on that note, stay tuned. You'll see a beautiful review of Fuse by the Beard and Meeple soon. And keep making great games, and we look forward to playing your games soon.
Where's my thing?
There's just there.
It's not here.
Just cut it.
No, it's here. Here it is. No, I want this thing. This thing.
This thing.
We're gonna show this thing. Here it is.
The thing.
Bam! In your face.
There we go. So that's how you can reach us, and we hope to hear from you soon.